Kayla. How was okay. Oh, sorry. Okay, so we're gonna jump into what IP meetings look like during test prep. This is going to be your O3 space with teachers, and it's going to be a little bit shorter just to give them time back. Test prep is a lot, and it's gonna be literally test prep focused. So they're gonna come with their pre-work, and you as the coach need to be prepared and know the data as well.
So you're saying this is going to happen during O3?
Yes.
Gotcha.
That's all the context I'm gonna give, and then you can ask like questions and takeaways and all of that afterwards.
Okay.
And we are on page 4 if for your wondering questions. So you ask question after.
Hey Kayla, how's test prep season going?
How is test preppy?
What you mean by that?
That's a lot.
It is a lot.
Yeah.
It is a lot. But let's be, positive. There's some great things happening in your classroom. And we are going to, so this O3 is gonna feel a little bit different. This is gonna be our first intellectual preparation meeting, which is gonna be based strictly on test prep. And we're gonna zoom into your data week over week. So the first thing we'll do when we start this meeting is our action plan follow-up. We obviously don't have that because we didn't meet last week in this regard. We just had our regular O3. So we're gonna skip that part of our agenda for today. And we're gonna go right into the data overview. Shout out to you for having your D3 completed. I was able to take a look at it and understand what is happening in your classroom. I was in there, but I was able to understand it from your idea of what happened once you checked all the work and everything. Yep. So let's jump into your D3 and let's talk about what standard did students struggle with the most.
Yeah, the standard that they struggled with the most was 2.2. So specifically around that central idea, it just took them out. I mean, it is online what's been happening during our CRQ, so I wasn't surprised, but that central idea standard really just like took them out.
Okay.
And I have already completed what they need to know, what they need to be able to do, so I understand like what that particular one is. So.
Okay. So talk to me a little bit about that. So is it like the skill or a concept, or is it the entire standard that they're struggling with?
Yeah, no, I don't think it's the entire standard. What I saw happen in the data when I sorted their exit tickets is that students were in their scrap paper. Students were not choosing the relevant details because when they were actually supposed to be annotating and using their genre just thinking job paragraph by paragraph, they were actually choosing not the key detail. They were choosing unimportant details, which led them to choose the wrong central idea.
And why do you think they were? Why do you think they were choosing irrelevant details versus relevant details?
I think it's a couple of things. So my first cohort was able to do it, and my second cohort really struggled. But when I went back and looked at the text, they were not using the headings to support them in understanding what what those 3 paragraphs under the heading was about. So I think that was probably the biggest misconception in nonfiction text.
Okay, so it sounds like to me that the skill or the concept of the standard was because if cohort 1 was able to reach mastery, that means that they understood what the central idea was, and they were able to do something that I see is just a struggle period since our first CRQ was connect the key details, right?
Yeah,
so each
right.
paragraph, right, so each paragraph, they should be able to connect like, okay, this one is supporting like somewhat of what I'm thinking the central idea is. Now this one too, now this one too. Now I can confirm and determine that this is my central idea. And then when they jump into the questions, they should be able to explain it based on those details that they chose, the relevant details in the text.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. That actually came up all year across our data, across from CRQ1 to CRQ7. Before we jump into your IP and how we're going to adjust, I want to talk about your bright spots. What cohort of students are bright spots and why?
Yeah, so cohort 1 did really well, which I'm really proud of. They actually did meet the goal. Our goal was 55%, so they hit the 55% mark. All of the bucket 1 kids were able to continue to show mastery, as well as a good majority of the bucket 2 kids. So I was really proud of that. And then we just have some really strong bright spots in terms of that cohort overall, in terms of individual students. It will be the equivalent of a level 5. Like Odessa would have got a level 5. Stacy would have got a level 5. Eric would have got a level 5. So it was nice to see that even if the whole class got 50%, 55%, but there were other students within that would have really leveled up the class and showed learning gains.
I'd love to hear that. And with our incentives that we have coming up, I think students like Odessa, Alrika, and Stacy would really feel the shine, as well as just your cohort 1 as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Your bucket 1 and your bucket 2 students, I think that would be really invested in the system. Talk to me about your areas of concern. Cohort is the same thing, cohort and students, what's your areas of concern?
Yeah, obviously cohort 2, they didn't meet the goal. So that's the focus cohort that I want to really zoom in on, that period 2 block. And then in terms of specifically within there, my cohort 1 kids in that cohort, the ones who have to remain because they already been shown mastery, the bucket ones, they actually made mastery. So all the friends in bucket 1 actually killed it on the CIP. They're the only reason that we hit.
I was about to say, so they held it down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Our bucket 2 friends did not. So the friends that are in bucket 2 in this cohort, none of them actually met mastery. There are some small shifts they can make on their work paper that I think we can talk about, but none of them met mastery at all. So that's very alarming to me. And then we got some friends, like Angelica, she always got something going on. She in there acting up, playing. And so, got some behaviors in there as well. So that's something I want to think about, because I know test prep has to be tight, and it wasn't as tight as I needed it to be in that cohort, and I think that impacted the results.
I think same with the first cohort, the incentives are gonna need to be like rolled out different. We're obviously gonna have to differentiate, but the behaviors that you see, I think we've built incentives between school teams and TNL, built incentives to help our kids who struggle with behavior, because those mostly fall with our bucket 2 students, so they missing the mark because other things are impacting their results and their mastery, right? So what I want you to be, or I want us to talk about and follow up with during our check-in, is making sure that those kids know like what they're like working towards, because we just gotta do a little something different for them. Let's just call it spade a spade. We gonna get some candy for them. We gonna like make sure like day to day they can't do the long the end of the week, the 2 weeks. They need like an incentive daily so that they can, Jelly can stop acting crazy and she can work towards something. Yeah. Okay, we already kind of hinted on this, but let's jump into the actual lesson that you submitted. So I appreciate you always having your lessons ready. This meeting is gonna feel a little bit different though, because you've already submitted your IP, but we need to modify it. That's what test prep is gonna feel like. I have some data. I taught this skill earlier in the week. I have some data. Now I'm gonna adjust when that skill comes up again. Which for you did the D3 on Tuesday. Wednesday is your power day that you'll respond to in a different way. And then on Thursday, we're gonna zoom into that lesson so we can unpack what needs to happen.
Let me pull it up, because I always have my lesson things ready.
I know you do. Okay. So where do students get another opportunity to practice not the standard as a whole, but what you wanted to connect with? So that or what you wanted them to zoom into. So the connecting ideas, paragraph over paragraph.
Yeah, so the biggest misconception was them not being able to connect, and like I said, that second cohort wasn't able to understand how to use their headings to help them gist accurately. And so, for example, this first paragraph, we'll do this one together, right? So I'm thinking like potentially modeling, like, okay, the first heading is create jobs. The question I need to be asking myself when I see a heading in relation to the title is, what jobs are being created and how does that connect to the title of small business mean big business? So I need to make my thinking visible for students about how to use a heading in connection to the title to get to the central idea. So I wanted to model, I wasn't gonna model with this paragraph, but now I'm gonna model with that particular paragraph, my thinking aloud, and then the second paragraph being able for them to do it in partners and they does.
I think that's a strong idea. I think even hearing you say, how does the heading connect to the title? I think that's something as a teacher that you overlook because you're a good reader, right? But strong readers need to hear that every time, right? So maybe they did skip the subheadings the subheadings because they don't think they're important, but they actually do help you because you know the central idea when you read the first paragraph mainly, or you know how to like gear towards that. So if students make that connection, then they know how to connect it throughout because it has something to do with why small business are successful. So you highlighted that in the first paragraph, and then after that, you're literally, the second paragraph, like you said, modeling for kids how it connects back to that, and then that third time, they should be able to do it on their own. Well, not on their own, in partners, and then you're gonna release them the next paragraph.
Yeah, I'm gonna release them for the build relationship section.
On their own, okay.
Yeah, for partner work.
Okay, and let's talk about student engagement. So I think right now, you have a strong grasp of like model and releasing, but how are students engaging so that you were able to collect data before you send them off?
Yeah, to be honest, I like to be very controlled in there. I don't like too much movement, too much stuff going on.
Yeah. I gotta give you a piece of feedback with that homegirl, because it's a lot of you and a little bit of them.
It's 70-30.
But how would they learn, friend?
60-40. What do you want to give me? What do you want to give? 50-50? 40, 60?
Yeah, but who the 60?
Me. No, I'm just kidding. Them.
Yes, the 60 has to be them. And why do you think that's important?
I mean, especially with this cohort, they need to be able to explore a little bit more. So yeah.
Yeah.
They need a little bit of control too.
Yeah, because then what can you do as the facilitator if you letting them, even if it's like partner first or group work first and then they go on their own, what can you do as the facilitator in that space?
Yeah, I can just make sure I'm going around and collect the data, like
Yeah.
specifically on my bucket and show mastery.
Yeah, and then you have like those one-on-ones with them, allowing them to like grapple with it, and then you directing them with really strong questioning, which always is in your plan, but you don't get to utilize it because you never released them to go.
Yeah.
How does that sound?
That makes sense. I can do a little bit more with the release when we get into that second paragraph. I usually do it at like the last one, so I would do it earlier.
Yeah, and if you do it earlier, then students will be able to what?
Do independent before they get into the text by themselves.
Yeah, and they'll be able to come up with those relevant details on their own because they get to the central idea, but they don't get to those relevant details will come up in the multi-select, the part A, part B, all of those questions, they need to be able to grapple with it to be successful with those questions.
Yeah.
Last or second to last, if all your bucket 1 and 2 students show mastery, what percentage should we see in both of your cohorts?
Yeah, so for the first cohort, it'll be what we just saw, because that all the bucket
Yeah,
one
'cause
and
they
bucket
made it.
two. But in the second cohort, if bucket 1 and bucket 2 show mastery, that whole that class will end up at 65%.
Yeah, and we need that second cohort because that's where most of your bubble students are
Yeah.
to get there. And like you said, it's little things impacting it. So if you release them early and you're able to like let them engage and you become the facilitator, those little small one-on-ones will help them get there and get that just right step they need to close that gap. We're gonna talk about next steps and then we'll close out and I'll give you, your time to breathe because this season is a lot. What do you need from me?
I feel like I feel good about cohort 1, but I would like some support with cohort 2, seeing as though this is the first test prep lesson and it's a bomb overall. So I want you to come into cohort 2, but specifically, seeing how I collect the bucket 2 data and what to do with it, right? Sometimes I feel like with that cohort, their data is not really trendy, it's kind of all over the place. So like when I collect their data, how do I respond to with an individual kid who's just struggling, like throughout that particular lesson? Like I would like to see you model that if possible to get them closer to the answer.
Okay, so cohort 2 specifically, I'm gonna come in, observe. I'm going to watch you collect data and give you feedback based on that. But then you want, based on the data you collect, you want me to model a one-on-one for you.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I think that works. I think
With a bucket 2 kid.
Yeah, I put that specifically in the bucket 2 student. I think we're gonna make sure next week when we come that your bucket or your cohort 1 maintains because we don't wanna, see them drop. So if that's the case, then I'll be on both cohorts. But for now, keep letting cohort 1 shine and incentivize them. And cohort 2, we just gonna get in there and give them all the support they need.
That sounds good. Oh, look forward to seeing you.
And see.
Yeah.
All right, friends. So we're actually going to get into turn and talk. So you can turn and talk to the friends around you. What do you notice about this particular IP test prep 03 moment? And then what questions do you have? So you can jump in.
Okay, let's stop recording.
Yeah, you can stop. Thank you.